Police officers across France say they're reaching a breaking point. But on Tuesday, the government announced officers would receive a €300 bonus for their efforts.
The state currently owes almost €275 million to its police officers for overtime, a debt accumulated not in recent months or years, but over the past decades. The last few weeks have been extremely difficult, both in their commitment but also in the violence they have suffered, with attacks sometimes intended to be fatal.
Police have struggled to contain the chaotic Yellow Vest movement, in addition to student protests. And in the build-up to Christmas, markets and shopping areas require extra security, especially after a terror attack in Strasbourg last week left 5 dead and 11 injured.
Our job is to assure civil order, but given our working conditions, we're unable to do so.
We're asking local authorities to cancel their firework displays if possible. We can protect the Christmas markets, but large gatherings like protests are difficult to secure.
This Wednesday, one police union has called for stations to be shut and to only respond to emergency calls. With the government under pressure, police officers hope they'll be bargaining from a position of power.
French President Emmanuel Macron is facing new protests today from the French police department. He's promised a one-time €300 bonus for police officers, but that does not seem to be enough. All of that comes after weeks of Yellow Vest protests that have been Macron's stiffest challenge yet. But after a series of measures designed to appease public anger, the French president is still trying to show he's in control.
We're talking about the biggest crisis really for Emmanuel Macron, and the way really coming out of the blue, although they did give a voice to a lot of frustration that had been bubbling below the surface, a lot of grievances which had the backing of the majority of the French population. It ended up with Emmanuel Macron giving a number of concessions to the protesters, and now, as you say, the police want their pound of flesh. They say that dealing with those protests, dealing with the terrorist threat of recent years has left the police force overstretched and exhausted. What's more, they say now is the time to bring up a number of issues, some of which go back decades, not least the fact that they say some 23 million hours worth of overtime remains unpaid. The police unions here in France have traditionally been relatively influential. They'll be hoping for further concessions in talks with ministers in the Interior Ministry behind me this afternoon. And as you were saying there, Emmanuel Macron, the French president, he was a leader who promised to be different to those who'd gone before, saying that he wouldn't give in to pressure from the street, that he would balance France's budgets, make it more credible in Berlin and in Brussels. And the last month, really, all of that has had a pretty brutal encounter with reality on the streets of France.
It is exactly 1 month to the day since these so-called Yellow Vest anti-government protesters hit the streets. And guess what? They are still out there. They are at traffic circles, blocking them. They're along the highways. Over the weekend, some toll booths were torched. Remember, this is where it all started. This is where the protests began against proposed hikes in gas taxes to combat, according to the government, global warming. Then it morphed into the broader protests that we've witnessed firsthand in Paris, here, and other cities. The clashes on Saturday were down significantly, a lot less violence than we saw the week before. One of those reasons, as you noted, Bill, the concessions being made by the government on taxes, on wages, by French President Emmanuel Macron. But apparently the folks aren't satisfied. They want more. That's why they are still out. His poll numbers, by the way, are way down. The latest survey puts job approval at 23%. One place, finally, Bill, trying to get back to normal, the French city of Strasbourg in the eastern part of the country. Of course, that was the scene last week of that terrible terror attack. And overnight, we got some more bad news. One more person succumbed to their injuries. The death toll now at 5. That person was trying to stop somebody from coming into a cafe to kill more people. You got to believe the folks here in France are wishing that the holiday season brings a little bit more joy to this place.
The Yellow Vests are determined, bolstered by the support of their community. But their days may be numbered. The government has already started cracking down, dismantling outposts like this one.
Donc on a un petit peu peur quand même de ce côté-là.
Now they risk returning home with nothing but their grievances.